Columbia Pictures presents Emilio Estevez, Rob Lowe, Andrew McCarthy, Demi Moore, Judd Nelson, Sheedy, and Mare Winingham in the movie that's got the heat.
You know what it is? It's St. Elmo's Fire.
The heat this summer is at St. Elmo's Fire. Rated R. Now at select theaters. Check newspapers for locations and showtimes.
Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around is my review of the 1985 drama St. Elmo's Fire. I'm sorry. I can't help myself. Anytime that I think of this movie or I see that title, I think of the song Man in Motion, St. Elmo's Fire by John Parr from the soundtrack. And it's honestly one of the best things about the movie, and definitely one of the most memorable things about it, other than the cast and some incredibly questionable writing. Now, before I get into sharing more thoughts on this film, I want to give a shout out to Brock for requesting this review. If there's a film, a TV show, or an anime you want to see me discuss or review, feel free to donate to my PayPal. The link will be in the video description down below. Now, St. Elmo's Fire is one of those films that was put on the fast track to capitalize on the success of The Breakfast Club, which was a huge hit that year for Universal in 1985. So Columbia Pictures was like, hey, we want a piece of that pie. So they put this into really fast development, and they wanted to get as many members of the Brat Pack, the young, talented cast from The Breakfast Club, on board as they possibly could. So they got Emilio Estevez, Sheedy, and Judd Nelson. They weren't able to get anyone else, but they were able to get a few more young, talented, and rising stars in Demi Moore and Andie MacDowell and Rob Lowe. And they rounded out the rest of the cast with actors and actresses like Mare Winingham, Andie MacDowell, and few others. You even had Whip Hubley, who had a bit of a role. Martin Balsam, who played Mr. Beamish. But the main cast is the big players, so to speak. Emilio Estevez and company. Now, the film is directed by Joel Schumacher. It features a screenplay by Joel Schumacher and Carl Kurlander. And the film did pretty well. It wasn't as big of a hit as The Breakfast Club. It still made a profit, though, $37 million on a $10 million budget. And I don't think it did as well critically. And it doesn't really have the same cult following as The Breakfast Club. The Breakfast Club has a huge following. St. Elmo's Fire's following isn't nearly as big. And I can see why. At the end of the day, I think it's worth a watch for the cast alone, but ultimately I just thought it was an okay movie. A little disappointing considering the cast and considering what Schumacher has to work with here, and the main reason for that is the screenplay, which is honestly kind of a mess. So, to me personally, it does a bad job making you care about these characters. It's watchable because of the cast and their inherent charisma and the chemistry with everyone involved, but that doesn't mean that you like these characters. You like the cast, you like the performers, but you don't really like the people that they are portraying. And I really do feel that comes down to the screenplay. The screenplay, it's almost like it doesn't know what it wants to be. Does it want to be a dark drama? Does it want to be a satire of films like The Breakfast Club and this idea of adolescence or growing up and so on and so forth? Or does it want to skewer what a lot of people this age, at least the age of the characters in this film, think about themselves. Is that what it's trying to do? And if that's the case, it's very intermittent. It's not really consistent. So you have moments where it nails that vibe, but then you have other moments where it doesn't really come close. And it doesn't help either that there's some really messed up stuff in this narrative and in this script with the way certain characters are portrayed, and the way some advice is given, or just the advice itself. So it's just one of those films where, yeah, it's got a great cast. It does have some things going for it, but it never really keeps the fire lit. No pun intended. So it's directed by Joel Schumacher, and his direction here is adequate, but it's nothing awe-inspiring or amazing. He's definitely done a lot better. There are times where it feels very flat. It's not as colorful or bright or as energetic as a lot of the settings that are shot in this film. Like Jules is a bright pink apartment complex and stuff like that. The bar at St. Elmo's. It's just one of those things where the film has so much energy when it comes to the cast, but the direction itself is very rigid and doesn't really have a lot of flexibility. And I'm wondering if that's not entirely Joel Schumacher's fault. I'm wondering if that was a studio thing. The studio was like, no, we don't want you to distract the audience from this cast. We want to have a Breakfast Club sized hit. So we do not want you to distract people with your camera work and your pans and zooms and Dutch angles and whatever. And that's unfortunate because I think that would have added a lot to this film. And maybe it's due to the fact that Joel hadn't really found his niche yet either. He really hadn't found his particular preferred style just yet. So there's that too. But Joel would definitely go on to do a lot better when it comes to directing after St. Elmo's Fire. I mean, 2 years after this, he did The Lost Boys, and that's as a dynamic of a film as you can get when it comes to direction. But that's just not the case of this movie. And then the screenplay, it starts off hot. It really does. It starts off good. You really like the rapport between the cast. And this is at the point where you don't really know them. You haven't really gotten to know them just yet. All their idiosyncrasies, all their quirks, all their skeletons in their closet. So when you're just provided with this outsider's perspective of these people, you're like, oh, hey, they look like a fun group of friends. I like this. And there's some really witty lines of dialogue, and they are all really connected to one another. And then once it starts to peel layers away and reveal more about these characters, the less and less you like them. And the more and more you start to see how superficial some of them are, how genuinely terrifying some of them are. And then it starts to focus in on more of these dramatic subplots, and none of them really click. So you have one that's dealing with Emilio Estevez's character Kirby and his unhealthy obsession with Andie MacDowell's character Dale. Then you've got another one where it's a love triangle between Andrew McCarthy, Judd Nelson, and Ali Sheedy. So you have Ali Sheedy and Judd Nelson who are playing Alec and Leslie, and Alec and Leslie are a couple. And Alec really wants Leslie to commit to him and marry him, but she's on the fence. He then tries to push the issue way too much to the point where they break off their relationship. This then opens the door for another member of their group in Kevin, played by Andrew McCarthy, who has always been harboring feelings for Ali Sheedy's character Leslie ever since he met her. So this now opens the door for him, so then he tries to get involved, and they make out, they have sex one night, and he thinks that she's now in love with him, but then of course that's not really the case, and you know how it goes. But the way that that whole thing is written with the love triangle, it's pretty creepy. I mean, there's a lot of this stuff. There's a lot of creepy shit in this movie that could be easily put into a horror movie or a thriller about some psycho. The whole thing with Kirby, with Emilio Estevez's character, that's Psycho Central, man. I was stunned by the writing here. It does not paint him as a likable guy. It paints him as somebody who needs help and somebody who you should be wary of because he might be the next Ted Bundy or some shit. It's just like, what in the fuck is going on here? And what do I mean by that? Okay, this is the extent of Kirby's craziness. All right, Kirby, he's obsessed with Andie MacDowell's character, Dale. But the obsession is not your normal obsession. It's an ultra obsession. So he's going out of his way to impress her. So he thinks, okay, she's an intern at a hospital. I'm going to go to medical school. And maybe that'll impress her. Doesn't work. So then he's like, okay, I guess maybe she wants somebody that has money. So then he gets a job with this guy and house sits and then throws this big giant party for her and she doesn't show up. So then he decides to do an insane, crazy thing, which at this point is just more craziness on top of craziness, because even prior to all of this, he literally stalked her. He stalked her to a party that she was going to. And there's a scene in the film where you see him staring at her through the window with just dead eyes, like he's a peeping Tom, just one. And you're just like, oh my God. Kirby, let her go, man. You're fucking nuts. And then there's even a scene where it's from the point of view of Kirby as he's walking into the party trying to confront Dale. And it's set up like a horror film, like it's Halloween, because it's all from the point of view of him, and there's heavy breathing, and people around him are scared and looking at him like he's fucking crazy. And you're just like, what the hell? And then, like I said, that's just one aspect of craziness, because it gets crazier from there, because then he goes and takes it up another notch. When she doesn't arrive for the party he threw her, he then steals a car, finds out where she's staying at a cabin in the mountains, drives all the way up there, and I guess he thought she was gonna be with him because he went that far, but that didn't happen. He tries to drive away because he's ashamed, but he gets stuck in the snow, so then he has to awkwardly stay with her and her companion, her boyfriend. And then the next day, there's this moment where the boyfriend says, hey, I want you to take a picture with him. Save the moment. And before they take the photo, Kirby grabs Dale and just plants a kiss on her lips. No consent whatsoever. Just grabs her, lip locks, and then they take the photo. He's got this shit-eating grin on his face. Like, yeah. Uh-huh. And then he drives away because the snow has melted enough so that he can get out of there. He drives away cackling like a fucking maniac. He's driving away in his car going, no consent, woo! You're just like, what the fuck is this? Like, even for the time that was pushing it. It really was pushing it. Like, Kirby, you're a fucking psycho, man. Get some help. And then after that, that's the end of that storyline. That's the end of it. I guess he's realized, alright, I'm not gonna get her. But what is his lesson? What did he fucking learn? Did he learn that he shouldn't be a psycho stalker? I have no idea. I wouldn't be surprised if Kirby went on later to become a serial killer, or at the very least a sociopath. What the hell were you thinking, Joel? Maybe it wasn't Joel who wrote that. Maybe that part. Maybe it was Carl. But it just gets worse from there because you have the whole thing with Jules, Demi Moore's character, and she's up to her eyeballs in debt because she's using credit to pay for all her expensive things in her apartment, and she's been spending just extravagantly. She's just spending way beyond her means to the point where she's taking early paychecks, and she then has started to date this banker who's her boss, and she's just trying to do whatever she can to stay on the fast track and keep the money rolling in and keep her rich facade up. And in the process, she's also getting addicted to drugs. And by the end of the film, there's this moment where she's trying to commit suicide by leaving all the windows in her apartment open because she's now coming to the realization that she's got nothing because except maybe her friends, but at this point that's not coming to her mind because all her things were taken from the apartment, and she's in trouble now, and she's under all this debt, and she has all this pressure, and her friends come to her aid and they're trying to get her out of there. It's an interesting method of suicide, I have to admit, but it definitely goes against what the norm is. Really, when a lot of people try to kill themselves, don't they do it so it's as fast and painless as possible? Not like just sitting there in a cold room for half a day and then freezing to death. I mean, I don't know. I think that's a little unrealistic, but okay. So she's trapped herself in there, and Rob Lowe's character Billy, who's had an off and on again relationship, not off and off again. I don't even know what that means. But they've had a relationship at times, and they're friends. So Rob Lowe, his character Billy, breaks down the door and comes in and tries to console her and tries to get her to break out of this. And she has a moment where she breaks down and cries and talks about how she's really distraught about her father and all of these things and emotions that she really needed to get out of her system and out of her basement in order to really face the problems that are causing her to have a mental breakdown like this, where she's rocking back and forth while she's curled up in a ball with all the windows open because she's thinking about killing herself. And what does Billy do? What does the screenplay have Billy do? Give her the worst advice ever. He just says, "This isn't real, Jules. You know, it's like St. Elmo's fire. That fire, that pattern in the sky that people thought they saw, but it wasn't real. Nobody saw it. The captain wasn't even real. It's not real, Jules. It's just our time on the edge." Just like, what in the fuck is wrong with these writers? Like, it's not real? The emotions that she is expressing, the pain that she's feeling, all of this is not real? That's the worst advice you could ever give somebody who is going through a mental breakdown. Don't worry about it. It's not real. It's just your time on the edge. Like, what? And the thing is, there are a lot of people that actually took that advice and thought it was good advice. It's not, trust me. It is horrible advice for somebody who's in the situation that Jules was in this film. If you are in a situation in your life where you are dealing with problems that are so severe and so difficult that they are causing you to be addicted to drugs, and then also cause you to have a mental breakdown that's so bad that you are actively trying to commit suicide, those problems are real. And you should confront them. You should deal with them. You should go to therapy. You should get help. None of this, have a friend tell you it's gonna be okay. Nothing, this isn't real. You're just going through some things. No, it's real. You are going through some things, but that doesn't mean that these things and these feelings and the reactions to them are not real. Maybe I'm misinterpreting the statement, but I don't think so. I've read the quote numerous times, and each time it really does appear that the writers are trying to say that what Jules is going through, whatever her reaction to all of this is, it's not real. She's just dealing with her time on the edge, and that's just not how it is. Shitty, awful advice. And it's honestly even more upsetting considering the fact that Demi Moore, at the time of filming, was dealing with her own drug addiction to the point where she had to go to rehab, and then she had to commit to the director and say, yeah, I'm going to be clean, I promise. So you would think they would just do a rewrite then and there. Be like, yeah, Demi's going through this in real life. Maybe we shouldn't have this kind of advice at the end of this movie. And then by the end of the film, like I said, you can always count on your friends. Don't ever let the fire go out. That's not true, because it does go out, because Billy goes out on his own and decides he's going to be a fuck up in some other city because he can't handle commitment and can't handle the pressure of being an adult. You still have this really strained relationship now between Ali Sheedy and her two friends, and Judd Nelson and Andie McCarthy. Emilio Estevez's character, I don't think he's learned anything. Demi Moore, horrible advice. I guess now she's going to be fine, but she hasn't learned anything either. All her friend did is tell her it's not real. And now she's just going to go back to being addicted to drugs and doing whatever. Mare Winingham, she's left out in the cold because she had feelings for Billy, but then Billy leaves, so he's not even going to commit to his wife and his kid or Mare Winingham. He's just going to leave because he can't commit to anything. And Judd Nelson, like I said, just there along with Andrew McCarthy, just stuck in the middle with this love triangle. And then they say, the remaining ones that are there after Billy leaves, they're like, oh, we're going to go to St. Elmo's bar tonight? He's like, nah, I got to go to work in the morning. How about we go have brunch at noon tomorrow? I'm like, okay, all right. So the fire went out. It's like, don't let the fire go out. It literally went out by the end credits. They're no longer like, yeah, let's have fun. Let's live. Let's live life large while we still can. Oh no, let's go have brunch tomorrow. That'll be nice. Just, what is wrong with this This screenplay is just I know it seems like it's a little bit of a rant, but it kind of is, because it's a disappointing film to me. You have this excellent, talented cast, and they're just given this screenplay that is really subpar in so many different ways. It starts off really good, but then it just completely tails off and goes into a tailspin and then falls into a ditch by the end of the movie. But despite the fact that the screenplay is inconsistent in terms of its quality, it's still a decent, okay film because of the cast and because of their chemistry with one another and because of the elements and aspects of the film that are strong. I like the moments where it does pull back the layers and shows you who these friends really are, especially when it comes to how they appear to outsiders. I like that perspective. I actually wish that perspective was used more in this film. And even though I don't know what the message of the film really is, it does have an impact. Maybe the message is it's supposed to be bad advice. It's supposed to be these characters, these people are flawed and you should not look up to them and don't take their advice and don't follow their lead. And if that's the case, then the film actually works in that regard. So maybe that's what they were trying to go for. And if that's the case, maybe it's better than I think it is. Maybe that's the whole point. Maybe the whole point is, yeah, they're kind of shitty people and they have bad advice and they make bad decisions. And yeah, you shouldn't look up to them. You should not be following their direction. You shouldn't be going down their path. And if that's the case, all right, okay, maybe that works, but it doesn't make for that consistently enjoyable of a film though, because it just gets to the point where you just can't stand some of these characters. You're just like, I don't like you. Like, there are some characters where you're just like, I don't even want to be around you, or if I'm afraid you're gonna fucking kill me, Kirby. Get away from me, man. uh, but yeah. It features some other aspects of the production that I thought were worth mentioning, like the music by David Foster. A lot of it is very sappy, very saccharine. Some bits are pretty catchy, though. I like the saxophone bit that Billy plays in the bar. The main theme's not too bad. The cinematography by Stephen H. Burham, it's banal. It's pretty been there, done that. The editing by Richard Marx, at times it's really good. At other time, and at other times it just doesn't really register that much. It's just in the background. So there are times where the editing is excellent, and there's other times where it's just there, like a lot of things in this film. But when it is really good, it's some of the best things about the film when it comes to the technique of the movie. I mean, the sequences that are from the point of view of these characters, like when Kirby is in his psycho mode and it's all the POV of him and the party, that's when the editing is like really good. And I thought that was quite effective. But it does have some pacing issues at times too. Like I said, after the first hour, it just starts to lose you because of the writing and how questionable and how poor it is at times. So then it just sits there and kind of dies. And it's unfortunate. But yeah, I don't really know what else to say about St. Elmo's Fire except at the end of the day, it's not one of my favorites, but it's worth a watch at least once for the cast, and I'm glad that I saw it in that regard. And it does make for an interesting discussion because of these really weird and questionable bits of writing. But anyway, thank you for watching my review of St. Elmo's Fire, and as always, I'll see you guys later. See ya.